father. He was a chef, a banquet chef here at a very nice hotel in Tulsa, Oklahoma for about 15 years. And we were really close. I was definitely a daddy's girl. But as I got older and became a teenager, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that was really hard for me. And I started acting out in school and being suspended a lot. And as I became a young adult and graduating, he finally passed away at a young age. And at that point, I began to turn that anger inward. And it looked like, in my life, addiction and jail time and homelessness. And eventually I became pregnant. And at that time, I decided to, when my daughter was born, turn my life around. And so I began attending culinary school. Well, surprise, surprise, I ended up being a very good chef. And so I've won awards at state and national levels. And I even signed up to attend a rehab program to make sure that I would not go back to my addiction. But what happened next, I just never could have planned for or imagined. If everybody would just take a minute with me and imagine being asleep in a room, and suddenly you feel so hot, you can't breathe, and you feel fire, physical fire on you. And the only thing running through your head is that I need to escape. And you do escape, but then you come to the realization that I don't have my child with me. And you attempt to go back into this burning house and get your child, but to no avail. And the next thing you know, you're waking up in a hospital 3 days later to a nurse telling you your child died. That's my story. That was my daughter. She was 22 months old and her name was Carabelle. And after her death, I had no motivation to continue my sobriety or even really continue living a normal life. I never tried to kill myself, but my lifestyle definitely reflected that I did not want to live. I lived homeless for a long time, sleeping under bridges and couch surfing. I was knee deep in my addiction. I was definitely at rock bottom. I was selling my body, myself for drugs. And then 6 months after the fire, I see my face on the news. And I was wrongfully charged with child neglect and incarcerated for 10 months. And during that stay at the county jail, I was offered 20 years on an 85% violent charge, which means I would have to do 85% of that 20 years. I applied for several programs and none of them would take me because of my violent charge. So the only thing I had left to do was pray. But as if God had heard me at that very moment, I was introduced to a program called Just the Beginning. That was a Christ-centered organization, the only one in my state actually that accepts violent offenders. And I was adjudicated to a 10-year suspended sentence to this program. Well, to me, that was a sign from God. This is my second chance. And so in that program, I was able to build my faith, my mind, my body, and ultimately the belief in myself. And soon after, I started my business, Carabelle's Eats and Treats, in memory of my daughter, Carabelle. And my target, the women that I hire are justice involved women. I also started just this year a nonprofit called Carabelle's Legacy that helps people who have been victims of fires um, really reestablish their lives, and also re-entrance from prison, get housing and resources in the community. But all this wouldn't have been possible if I never would have received treatment. If I never would have been given that second chance, I would be serving that time right now. I would not be able to break those other cycles happening, giving these women a place to be employed, and um, also being a second chance. And so without that treatment, also, I would still be in my cycle of addiction. And so I think as a community, we need to extend that second chance, most definitely. If you're an employer, if you're some kind of stakeholder, a judge, a lawyer, a prosecutor, you know, no one, I would like someone on here to raise their hand if they have never made a mistake, if they have never needed a second chance, you know. So I just know that just because you have a criminal charge or a criminal background, that doesn't dissipate your value or your purpose. So I like to thank you. Thank everybody for letting me talk today.
Maria, thank you so much for your openness, for sharing your heart, and for sharing your experiences. And I sit here obviously with a privileged life because I've never had any of those experiences. So I have a hard time wrapping my brain around the trauma that you've gone through in that situation of losing your daughter and then being falsely accused of that scenario. What if you can talk about this, and if you can't, that's okay. But what was going on through your mind at that point, and such a horrific experience that you're going through, and then being accused falsely? What was happening inside you then?
So I can say this, after the fire, and I think anybody who has a child would probably understand this, but even if it's not your fault, because you couldn't do anything about it, because I couldn't save her, in a sense, I had guilt and I had shame, because I felt like as a mother, I had failed. And when I was charged with child neglect, it felt like confirmation. Like, you're a bad mom. You're everything they say you are. And so it took a long time. It took me forgiving myself first to be able to get over that hump of, the charge that they put, the name that they put on me, so that's definitely something that I struggled with at that time. But as time went on, and I thank God for the treatment that I received, because the first thing that I was told when I got in there was, it's not about your case. And at the time, I did not understand that at all. But as I went through the treatment and was able to grieve and get into the process, I'm still grieving. I still cry and things like that, but I'm able to see that there was no malicious intent. This was a tragic accident. This was a tragic accident. And so I really had to come to terms with that. And I do believe that everything happened for a reason. And so I won't let her death, in my mind, be in vain. you know, something's going to come out of it, because that's what she was on this earth. She was a light. And that's what I want to remember her as. That's what I want to carry her legacy as, is a light to other people, a light of hope.
Wow. Thank you, Maria. That, yeah, just the resiliency as you've navigated through this. And I mean, I understand that a lot of this is attributed to your faith and to the focus that you have, and that impact that you have on justice-involved women who are coming through a process that you're able to encourage. That's fantastic. I've read somewhere, I got one more question for you, and then we're gonna move on. But I read somewhere where Oklahoma has the highest number of justice-involved women than any other state in the nation. Is that true?
That's absolutely true, unfortunately. So now we're second in the nation, because there has been some mass commutations in the past year or so. But the fact of the matter is that there are laws that still need to change. A lot of what goes on in the justice system here in Oklahoma is that women are often more guilty, I dare say, than the actual, maybe even abuser, or because they may have been abused themselves and had no choice but to allow it to go on. The man might receive less time, the actual abuser, than the woman being abused, you know, and that is where some of our incarceration rates, I've also been told, come from. And I've also been told by some of my mentors that there's a belief that men's instinct, their natural nature, is to hunt and kill, and the woman's natural nature is to nurture. So when a woman does anything outside of that nature to nurture, it's more criminal than a man killing. And so that is why our incarceration rate is so high for women.
Wow. Okay, well, Maria, anytime you want to move to Indiana, please, we will find you a place to live here in Indiana. Thank you so much. I wish you were here, just because of who you are. And then if we add to that all the good stuff that you bake and are able to put together.
Hey, maybe soon, if I'm able to expand, maybe soon.
There you go. Yes, I know there's space in this facility for you and for Carabelle's Eats and Treats. Thank you so much, Maria. We're gonna talk to you some more. I know folks will have questions to ask you, so thank you. Absolutely. Hang in there with us. You're just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce next Corey Martin, and obviously, you know, Corey, the senior chaplain at the Elkhart Correctional Facility. But I've known Corey now probably for about 8 years, I think, Corey. And I know you're all thinking, those of you who don't know Corey, you're right. Did he used to play lead guitar with ZZ Top? Yes, he did. He did. And he's going to do a little rendition of a couple songs here before we're over today. But Corey, you know, I just like Corey. He's just like, I mean, you know, if you just know Corey for about 5 minutes, you're going to like him too. But he is so focused on assisting men and women through the process of reentry, not just being a chaplain there at the jail, but caring about them long after the jail. And that has been such a huge plus to Elkhart County and the surrounding area. So without any further ado, I'm just going to hand this over to you, Corey, and to your guests. So go ahead, have fun.
It's always a risk to say yes to Don. And I'm already second guessing this decision, Don. So I'm the chaplain at the jail, and I'm just going to talk very briefly and introduce a couple people to share also. But, you know, the Elkhart County Jail, actually first, Maria, I want to say that this is always a good reminder because like Don, I also have grown up as what I recognize as a privileged life and did not experience a lot of the traumatizing experiences that Maria or other people who may have been incarcerated experience. And it's just always I think one of the biggest benefits of the jail ministry is I think it's more of a jail ministry to our churches than our actual inmates, because when you're involved in the jail ministry or a ministry like this and you get to know people and you realize, man, if I would have experienced some of that stuff, I would be where they're at. And the idea that people deserve second chances is a no-brainer when you get to know people, because I need second chances. And I didn't experience a lot of the stuff that Maria experienced. And I can't imagine the number of chances I would need if I had been through some of that, those circumstances. So that, I think that is really kind of the overarching maybe ministry of the jail ministry is it's just as every bit as much of a ministry to our churches and volunteers as it is to our inmates. Part of the ministry is humanizing people. When you humanize people, judgment and condemnation fall by the wayside. So thank you for sharing, Maria. So the jail ministry, we do a number of different things. You know, when you think of a jail ministry, the typical things you might think of are church services and Bible studies and stuff like that inside the jail, which we do all of that. But then you realize quickly that all the services we provide inside the jail are good, but if we don't do something to help people once they get out, we're missing half of our opportunity for ministry, because a lot of people, when they leave, they're leaving with no support, no family, no friends, no job, no transportation, no money, maybe addictions they're still wrestling with, complicated family situations. So at the jail ministry, we started thinking about what can we do to help ease people's or lower the barriers, the hurdles for people when they get out as they're trying to get back and rebuild their lives. And we identified two areas. One is tattoo removal and one is housing. So we have some houses on the north side of Goshen that we kind of operate as reentry homes for people coming out of incarceration. We have 3 right now, and we're actually buying 5 more this year and expanding that ministry. And then we also do free tattoo removal. We offer that inside the jail and we offer it outside the jail. So people who are leaving, they have enough things to try to overcome. But if you have tattoos on your face, or you have gang-related tattoos, racist or hateful tattoos, that's just one more kind of reminder of who you were. And the last thing you need when you're trying to move forward is your past tattooed all over your body as a reminder. So we thought one of the kind of low-hanging fruits that we could offer people here at the jail for when they get out is free tattoo removal. So we've been doing this for a few years now. Holly, who is 2 people over from me right there, she's our laser tattoo removal technician. So she's been with us for a couple of years. She does all of our tattoo removal here on the inside. And then Lisa, who's right next to me, her and her husband have actually been through the process themselves. And they actually serve on our board now. So they're now technically my boss. And they do the tattoo removal for us at Vista Community Health Center in Goshen. So I think I'm going to turn over to Lisa, and she can maybe share a little bit of her story about why tattoo removal has been important for her and her husband, Bobby. And maybe you talk about the opportunity they have now to help give other people a second chance through tattoo removal.
So my husband Bobby and I have both been through the system. We've both been through prison. We were both in gangs and made a lot of poor choices. So it's really important for us, and we have been doing the tattoo removal at Vista now for 2 years. We've been working on our own tattoos as well. So we know in ourselves how much it's changed our lives, and we've been doing it long enough now that we've actually had patients that have their tattoos totally gone, and it's just amazing to see the transformations in people. Their whole attitude and personality changes as they come off. They just turn into brighter. It eases their minds as to know that part of their life, that chapter of their life, is over, and they don't have that reminder on them anymore. So it's really awesome.
Yeah. What I'm curious, what so you said that you've been through the system.
Right.
What was it that kind of led you and Bobby to say, we're done, this part of our life is behind us now and we want to move forward?
We
Was there
just,
something that happened, or was it like a progression?
so it was, the main thing that helped us was when we first got out of incarceration, like every time we had been incarcerated, we got out and we were sleeping on somebody's couch that was, everybody we knew was addicts. So when we first got out, this time we had the chance to move into one of the jail ministries houses and didn't have to put ourselves in that environment anymore. And that's what really saved us.
Mm-hmm. When you think about ministry, at least for the jail ministry, we don't really view it as our job to force anybody into any way to believe or any way to act. I think our job is to be there when people are ready. So now Bobby and Lisa are there for people who are ready and want to move forward with tattoo removal. We're not trying to force people in anything they don't want. We're not trying to force people to believe certain things, but we want to be someplace where people know when they are ready and want to make a change, that we're a safe place to go, that we love them, that we care for them. And that, I mean, for myself, for many people, we blew past second chances a long time ago. I mean, we've moved on. We're way past second chances. And we just want people to know that regardless of what chance they're on, that when you're ready, we're always going to be there. So I also want to introduce somebody over here. This is Holly. And Holly does our tattoo removal for us here in the jail. We only do it 20 hours a week, but we're already in the top 5% of every place in the country for tattoo removal procedures. So it's a popular thing that we offer. So I wanted Holly just to share briefly about how she got into this. And then we'll kind of close and we'll be open for question and answer whenever that's appropriate.
Hi. Well, I actually went to a jail ministry banquet a couple of years ago, and that's where they presented what they wanted to do with tattoo removal. And just Corey said, we don't know how we're going to do this or who's going to do it. And that, for some reason, that just clicked with me. That was appealing. So a couple of weeks later, I asked Corey, hey, have you found someone? And he hired me. So it's just been the greatest joy of my life to be a part of something so critical in someone's life, that they've decided that they want to move forward. And that, this feels like a small way that we can help, but it's actually, I think it's always going to be bigger than we realize. Just to hear why people want to do it, that they want to leave this former life of gang activity or, decisions that they made when they were young, or a decision they made a month ago that they immediately regretted.
Mm-hmm.
And, but a big part of it is just to rebuild their family relationships. That seems to be a really common goal, and just to be part of something to help remove any shame. That's just a really great privilege.
Yeah, shame is a killer. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And what Lisa said, one of the things it does is it helps, if people, one of the first people we treated, I think we have a picture of him on our website. He had a big gun tattooed across his forehead. It goes down the side of his face, and it's totally gone now. And so what that does for your self-confidence when you're in public, your kids maybe aren't as embarrassed or ashamed if, you're going to one of their school functions. People look at you differently on the street. It's just, I think for the self-confidence it restores in people, I mean, that alone is worth quite a bit. Or if it's gang affiliated, feeling like that gang no longer owns you or controls you. Mm-hmm. We have women who have something we never anticipated or thought of before, but women who have their pimp tattooed their name on their body somewhere, to have that removed so they feel like they're no longer the property of that person anymore. So it just goes so long to restore people's self-worth and self-confidence. All right, anything else?
I think that wraps it up.
Okay, all right, well, that's all for us, I guess, and we'll answer.
Oh, no, it's not. Lisa and Holly, thank you so much for being a part of this today. And Corey, as always, just what you're doing there is just so awesome. And you, Corey, you were so profound, even when you try not to be. But when you said you are just here, you're being there for people who are ready. I'm going to tattoo that on my arm. I mean,
we can get rid of you. We can get rid of it won't be for free for you though, Don. We're going to charge you.
I mean, I'm thinking that's going to preach because I like that. And that's really what this is really all about. You're being there for people already. You're not trying to coerce them, not trying to move people somewhere where they don't want to be. That's what coaching's all about. We're just, hey, I'm ready. But sometimes, and I've seen this over the last almost 9 years of doing this, I've seen people who said they were ready, and something comes into their life and pushes them sideways. Like Maria, as you shared with us today, there was a time you were ready, you were in treatment, things were working, and the death of your father sent you in a direction you didn't want to go. You didn't get up one morning and think, well, I feel like going sideways today. But life's experiences took you in a direction you didn't want to go. And that happens so many times over and over again. So we're talking about second chances, but yes, it's third and fourth and fifth. And, it's giving as many chances as it takes to maybe you're the person that gets to be there when they're ready. And you extend that chance. And so you're doing that visibly. So let me ask this, because now folks, we're going to go to a Q&A after this, so everybody gets to ask questions. So to kind of segue into that, I'm going to start with a couple here. But Lisa, if I could ask you, because if I heard correctly, you've had some tattoos removed.
Yes.
Okay. So as somebody, again, I don't have a lived experience for this, but I have heard that is probably not the most enjoyable experience in life. So could you share a little bit about what that's like getting a tattoo removed?
So the best way I can explain it is like somebody's putting bacon grease on you and then snapping a rubber band at the same time. It's pretty intense. I did find a cream that you can use to get tattoos. It's a numbing cream. My gang tattoo takes up my entire thigh. And the first time I tried to remove it, I told my husband I can't do that. It's too painful. But that cream really works. So that's a game changer.
I will say though, Don, the women handle the pain much better than the men.
That's true.
The men just can't handle it. But
yes, I know. I've been with my wife 4 times during childbirth. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
Getting it removed, it's much more painful than actually getting it, is what we hear pretty consistently.
And that is true, but it's a lot faster. It's pretty quick, but it's definitely intense.
And it's a process, isn't it, Lisa? I mean, and Holly, you can address this too. I mean, people have to. I mean, you don't go in and say, "Hey, I want to get this tattoo removed," and then it just happens. I mean, this is a process, right?
No, like this tattoo has been done. That's 5 treatments. It usually takes 6 to 10.
Wow.
Removed, and then you have to wait 6 weeks in between. So if you get it removed today, you'd have to wait 6 weeks before your next treatment. So it's a process. It's definitely not anything quick.
Well, that was sort of why we that process was a big reason why we were like, we need to figure out a way to have this available on the outside, because we were so excited to offer it. But then if they go to prison, or they're released, and then it's like, now what? There's an option on the outside, which is just amazing. And Bobby and Lisa are just perfect. I've shadowed them and they're just great. So
that is incredible. Yes. And to keep that ability to go, because I'm sure nobody wants to go back to jail so they can get the rest of their tattoo removed.
Right.
So, yeah, that is fantastic. Corey, talk a little bit about, where did you get this idea? about removing tattoos. Where'd this all come from?
There's an organization in Los Angeles called Homeboy Industries, and they do more tattoo removal procedures than any place else in the world. And it's focused on former gang members in LA. And so the founder of that organization, Father Greg Boyle, wrote a book called Tattoos on the Heart. And I'm a big fan of that book. My wife and I are. And so we went out to LA to kind of see how they did things. And we thought, well, that seems like something we should be able to do here at the jail. So we raised money for it at a banquet for the actual machine, because they're pretty expensive to buy. And like Holly said, at the banquet, we said, we've never done this before and we don't know how to do it, but we know there's a need, so we're going to try it. And then Holly came to us a couple weeks later, said, I don't know what I'm doing either, so I'll be a perfect fit. And so we hired her. But that's, I mean, one of the things that we try to do at the jail ministry is not to wait until we have everything figured out before we try something. So we see a need, it fits within our mission, and so we try and figure out a way to make it happen. So, and we were really fortunate to have a sheriff and a captain here in Elkhart County who allows us to do this stuff, because it wasn't the easiest sell to the county attorneys that we should put a laser inside the county jail and start shooting inmates with it. So it was nice to have the support of the sheriff and the captain to be able to do this also.
Yes, that's where support really comes in handy.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for what you're doing. We're gonna segue right into that question and answer time. So for the audience that's there, questions that you have, please just go ahead and put those in the chat, send them off to Emma, and she's going to field those and kind of direct them to everyone who's speaking today. I'm going to kind of kick this off though with a question for both of you, for both Maria and for, actually, let's do this for all four of you, please. That, you know, right now I know there's somebody, okay, probably in the audience who's thought, yeah, okay, yeah, well, I've given so-and-so a lot of chances, and you know what, they just keep going back to old habits and old ways, and I am done giving them chances. And I know all of us in this field have come across someone, whether it's a loved one, a friend, somebody who said, you know, I'm not touching that stove anymore. I've been burned. I'm not giving any more chances. What would you say to that person who may be thinking that right now? Maria, I'm going to start with you. What would you say to that person who says, I'm done, I'm not giving another chance?
I would say that it's really, we have to, I think like Corey was saying, we really have to humanize people. Like, nobody's perfect. Like, I know that myself, I put my mother through so much, and she's given me chance after chance. I'm sure she's so tired, so tired, but my family, you know, they never stopped, you know, even when I was deep in my addiction, you know, they never stopped reaching out. They never stopped believing, you know, and I wish that I knew what to say to really instill that in somebody, but, you know, change is a process. You know, it comes in time. I didn't wake up one day in addiction and then the next day was like, all right, I'm done doing this now. It took time. It took stumbling. It took getting back up. It took someone saying you can do it. It took somebody else giving me a resource. It took somebody else reaching out. You know, it took several hands up. It wasn't one single person or one single treatment or program. It took a whole community. It took my family. It took close friends. It took everyone not giving up. So that's probably what I would say to that person.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. Yes, a process. Thank you so much. It's a process. Yes. Corey, Lisa, Holly, please. How would you respond to that person today?
That's a really tough question.
Do you want to
One of Corey's one of the lines Corey told me one time was, sometimes you don't have to let go, you have to let up. And so like with my family, I put my family through a whole lot too. And I was probably sober for 3 years before my dad even spoke to me. So, I mean, even people given time, even people that give up on you eventually will come back around. Like my dad literally didn't speak or anything to me. And last year was the first time I got to see him in like 10 years. So I don't think that anybody ever really totally gives up on somebody. I think that after a while, you just have to prove yourself to people that do give up on you. And eventually they come back around.
You know, I think I'm going to speak very broadly and generally, but I think a lot of times, maybe speaking from a church perspective, we're just way too concerned of being taken advantage of, being manipulated, or being burned. And you just kind of have to let that go. And maybe the help looks a little bit differently sometimes. But if we kind of release this idea that it's our job to fix people, and my success or my responsibility stops when I start viewing them as unsuccessful, or once we release this idea that it's our job, we define success by how quickly people change that we're trying to fix. I think for me, that's a big part of it. So I just don't view my job as trying to fix people. I view my job as just being with people. And if my job is just being with people, then I mean, it's harder, I guess, to feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I'm just being with people. I care about people. I know them personally. They're my friends. And I'm not trying to fix them because I want to be able to brag about something that I did. They're just my friends. And I want them to have a better life. And part of the good news of the kingdom of God, I think, it's not just that you get to go to heaven when you die. That's the limited good news, because most people are going to be alive on earth for another 20, 40, 60, 80 years. And I want people to experience that abundant life while they're on earth, not have to wait until they die to experience it. And so once we release this idea that once we redefine what it means to be successful in a ministry like this, and if I define my success by just staying with people, that was a big shift for me, at least.
I can share just a tiny bit. I have a brother who is a recovering addict, and I didn't expect to talk about this at all today, but I will just share that I feel like, I can't help but love him. I just can't help it. And I feel like that's God's gift to me, is that he just has given me that deep love for him, no matter what. And I'm just grateful for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And really what it comes back down to is relationship. That's what I'm hearing all of you say. It's really not having false expectation and allowing people to be people, allowing them to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to give up on you. And I know what we have seen from our volunteers and the men and women that we have the privilege to work with. There are very, very few people in their lives who will say, you know what, I am not going to define you by your worst choices in life. I'm going to hang in there with you. And, even if something happens and you go sideways, I'll be here when you're ready to come back. And I think that's pretty important. And I'm hearing you say that that's pretty important as well. Just that relationship, somebody you care about. So this now, we're going to extend this to our audience. And Emma, why don't you go ahead and let us know where those questions are, okay, for our speakers today.
Yes, there are a couple, but please keep keep chatting them in if anybody has anything else. I think maybe the first one is for you, Maria. So the question was, with your now sort of two endeavors, right? Because you've got Carabelle's Eats and Treats, if I got that right, and then also her legacy. So is there like treatment for the people you're working with incorporated into that, or do you think of treatment more broadly? Like is all of it is just like being in community with them the treatment? But yeah, it's a question of, yeah, is treatment provided in some form, or how do you think about that?
So the women that I employ have been in treatment, are coming out of treatment, some kind of program. Carabelle's Eats and Treats itself doesn't have a program that provides treatment, but we hire the women that are going through treatment or that are graduating from a program of treatment. And then also the aspect of, like, for me and my grieving and for coping with trauma, cooking has done that so much for me. And so in that way, you know, cooking is therapy. So so that's where the treatment comes from as far as us as an entity is concerned. Carabelle's legacy, we're still, like I said, we just started, January of this year. And so we're still building that out, developing it, but we do plan on getting treatment for those, because going to prison, that's traumatizing. Whatever sent you to prison probably traumatized you. So these are all things, even, you know, those that were victims of house fires and things like that, that's traumatizing, losing all your belongings, maybe even a loved one, pet, any of those things. All those are traumatizing things to go through. And so we do plan on having treatment built into that aspect of the business.
Thank you. Dawn, I'm just doing a time check. We have about 10 minutes left. So would you like to do one more question and then move into the final part, or how are you feeling?
Yes, I'll tell you what, let's do two more questions, okay?
Okay.
As long as none of them are for me, then let's do two more questions. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, a larger question. I think all of you have spoken to this to some extent, but going back to the theme of being there when people are ready, I guess sort of two-pronged. A, how do you know when people are ready? Or maybe for those of you who have experienced yourself, how did you know when you were ready? So I'll just leave that open to all of you if anybody would like to go first.
I'll go. Well, I think that to tell if people are ready, like, are they willing to do something different? Are they willing to say, hey, I messed up, or, you know, hey, maybe I'm not doing this right, I need help. That's the first step, is to be able to say, I need help. You know, I can't do this by myself. I can't try to figure this out by myself anymore. Where it came with me is definitely when I was in jail. I was just, when I was adjudicated to my program, I just went in knowing that my way didn't work. Like, I was trying trying to grieve, and I was just angry, and I was just stuck in addiction. And I knew that way was getting me nowhere. I was stuck, exactly how I said it. And so when I finally realized, hey, my way isn't working and I don't know another way, I need help, I think that is a telltale sign when you can say that.
I mean, honestly, I would say I have no idea. I've been wrong every time I've tried to guess. Every time I think this person is ready or this person is not ready, I've been wrong almost 100% of the time. And so I have no idea how to answer that question. So you almost kind of just err on the side of, I'm going to just choose to believe this person. And, they may prove me wrong one way or the other pretty quickly. But I think you almost have no choice. But if somebody says, okay, I'm ready, I want to do something different, we have to take them at their word, I think. Now, help may look different. I mean, if somebody says this 5, 10, 20 times, maybe the help looks a little bit different. But I would never want to take the chance or the risk of discounting what they're telling me. So I think most people, when they say it, they're really genuine when they say that. And then, maybe things happen in the next month or 2 or a year, and they get distracted, just like I get distracted. But for me, I think I don't know.
Oh, I think you switched yourself to mute. There we go.
Oh, sorry. I was probably just trailing off. I'm sure it wasn't important.
Holly or Lisa, do you have anything about that?
I don't know if I'm ever totally ready. Like I try to live every day and make better choices, but I still fail. I still slip and fall, and even though I've been through the addiction and stuff, I'm still human, and I still tend to judge other people. Like I don't see how they relapsed again. I mean, they should know by now. They've been through this before, but I did the same thing. Like I was ready 20 times before I actually got to the point I'm at now. I was sleeping in a tent in somebody's backyard that didn't even want me there. And now I own a house. Like, even though people say they're ready and they're making better choices, we're all still human at the end of the day. And so you can't really say that person screwed up again, because you might screw up. You do the same thing, just in a different way in your life every day.
Thank you. So yeah, I just realized I was thinking that we were ending at 11, but we have plenty of time. So keep the questions going. There's one here from Maria. So it's going back to what you said about being told and having the sense that this idea that women are supposed to be nurturers makes them makes that offense feel more intense, or like makes people feel
More
like
criminal.
it's appropriate to call it criminal. So yeah, I guess how have you do you have ways that you have come to address that with people? Like it's sort of the idea that we were just talking about, like we're wasting our time because that individual is going to fail again, or this person is beyond redemption because they're supposed to be a nurturer and this thing has happened. So have you found good ways to explain to people why you don't believe that's true?
Yes. Stop victim blaming. These people are struggling mentally, might be victims of abuse themselves, might be victims of, or, caught in an addiction. Addiction is a disease, and people don't seem to realize that sometimes. And it's just easy to place the blame on, especially if that's the way you believe, like, oh, well, she's a woman, she's supposed to take care of whatever, this role, placing these roles according to gender and things like that. And so if we can just kind of break that cycle, break those labels, everybody has their own independent mind and make their own decisions. Just because you're a man or a woman that commits the same crime doesn't mean one should be more criminal than the other.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a couple more. I want to be able to get to all of them. I'm trying to combine some in my head. So sorry, sorry, I don't have one right away. But Oh, so this is an interesting question. So it was directed to you, Maria, but I wonder too if others might want to speak to it. So how important is and was transparency for those who have helped you along the way? So I'm taking that to mean like how important was it for them to know what was going on with you, or to be transparent with them as they were reaching out?
Transparency builds trust. It builds relatability. When people know they're not alone, when people know that, hey, this, when they know specifically exactly what you're going through or have been through, I think it makes you more, even if they can't relate to what you've gone through, it's just like, wow, I can't even imagine, it makes them more empathetic to your cause or whatever. So I think it's very important to be transparent. If you can't be transparent, then you can't get to that root. You can't get to that, what is the problem? Because different people can bring a different perspective on what you've been through, but it's your story to tell. So however much or little you choose to tell, that's how much others can help you.
And I just got a clarification, thank you, from the question asker that she was also thinking of transparency on the part of the service providers. Like, was that important for you?
Transparency on the part of the service providers. Can you explain a little bit more what that means?
I think, well, I'm sort of mind reading because this was my question.
Oh,
I think maybe or if not transparency, what was most helpful for you in their approaches, or the way they talked about their work, or their relationship with you?
what was most helpful for me was knowing that I was somewhere safe, knowing that I was safe where to share my story, where I would not be judged, because I had already been so much up until that point. A safe place to grieve, a safe place to process feelings that I may not have been able to process before. Because let me tell you, jail was not it. Jail was not a place I could process those feelings. I actually had been, during my stay, had been in, anytime I broke down, was put in on suicide watch for weeks at a time. And I don't know if any of y'all really know what that is. Here in Oklahoma, they strip you naked and put you in a room that's 60 degrees and give you this, it's called a turtle suit. So it's like this thick mat blanket, which I guess is supposed to stop you from wanting to move or do anything. So it's just really dehumanizing to grieve. And so I had to hold all that in. And when I finally did get into a program and was able to grieve, I felt safe. I felt like my feelings were valid. I wasn't bad for grieving. I wasn't bad for whatever feelings I was having in that moment. So I would definitely say somewhere safe, support.
Thank you. Maybe before we transition into the last little bit, I just wanted to open it up again in case anybody has anything that the discussion so far has prompted that you wanted to say, or anything that you want to wrap up with. So maybe Corey, you could go first if you have anything.
I don't have a whole lot to add, other than I'd like to say amen to everything Maria just said.
I would too.
That was just really good. If
Mhm.
we can provide a safe place for people to go, that should be our objective. That was a good reminder. So thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, yeah, there are some more questions. Actually, before we transition, I do want to just read out a couple of, they weren't questions, they were just appreciations that people left. So first of all, for you, Maria, it was there at the beginning. it was, "We love you, Maria, and are so proud of you," at just the beginning.
Oh, thank you. I love y'all.
And then Corey, oh, let me scroll back to it. "Hats off to Corey and his team. Corey, both you and the jail ministry are such an inspiration. Drug Court has at least one success story because of you and the ministry. We thank you so much for being a supporter of Drug Court and our participants." So that's for you. Yes. So I think, I mean, again, it's hard to get to everyone. But Dawn, are you thinking we should move on now, or?
Yes, Emma, I think we're going to go ahead and just kind of transition because we want to just kind of honor everybody's time here. I think this has been incredibly impactful. And Maria, just to confirm everything that you said, if we will become a safe place, then even when someone doesn't have that stability or that environment of a home, I mean, I have never in my life been without a home. When you shared, and when Lisa, when you shared about not being, not having a home, living on the street, a lot of the people that I work with over the years have lived on the street, and I'm like, I couldn't survive on the street. I mean, I don't know how I'd make it. So we can't provide that. This agency doesn't provide that. I'm so glad that the jail ministry is providing that. But what we can provide, what each and every one of us can provide, is being a safe place as an individual that someone can actually talk to and rely on, that someone realizes, you know what, I'm not going to be judged by this individual. I'm not going to be given up on. And I can keep coming back. And I don't know why they do it, but I can keep coming back. So yeah, that's what the encouragement is to everybody in this audience today. So we're gonna kind of segue, because really what we want to do is we want to invite your participation. We also want to talk about something that's going on here at CCJ. This is for the community. It's kind of something that we've been thinking about for some time, and I know I've even had an opportunity to talk to Corey about this. He's been thinking about the very same thing. So that tells me if I'm thinking the same way Corey's thinking, first of all, I'm frightened. Second of all, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe this isn't so bad. So, but what we're doing is CCJ is putting together a welcome center. And the welcome center is specifically for returning citizens. Men and women are being released from incarceration and being welcomed back into the community. Because for a lot of people, being welcomed back into the community is probably an oxymoron for a lot of returning citizens. And so this is going to be a physical location here where it's going to network a lot of stuff for other agencies and help people to figure out, hey, where's this? Where do I find this? It'd be kind of a one-stop shop for them to be able to get the things that they need during their reentry and or recovery process. So what we're going to do there, we're going to provide some stuff for them. We want to be able to give them one-day bus passes to be able to get around, because one of the other issues for returning citizens is the inability to find transportation, reliable transportation. At least in Elkhart County. Elkhart County is kind of a rural county, so the bus doesn't always go to places where people need to get to. But it does get them a little closer, perhaps. So we want to be able to provide those bus passes to be able to do that. And for men and women who've been incarcerated for a long period of time, we really want to say welcome. And my perception of that is to give them a gift certificate for a meal at a restaurant of their choice, because if they've been down longer than 4.5, 5 years, they become institutionalized, basically, what research shows, and they've not had a good meal in a long time. And so we want to give them a $10 gift certificate to a restaurant of their choice, and just say, hey, we're glad you're back, and say, there are people in this community who really, really care. And we want to get you connected to those people that we know care about you. So We're gonna talk a little bit more about that, but I want to invite into this space Erwin Larry. Erwin is the executive director of CCJ, and he's going to share a little bit about some more of the program that we're doing here today and some of what we're planning on doing. So, Erwin, would you be willing to join me here?
No, I have joined you. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for choosing to be here in this space at this time. We have started this project and we are working hard to bring it not just to fruition, but to full and complete success. We have started receiving some donations to help us do this. As we all know, doing this work is very challenging. It costs, and it's not usually in anyone's budget specifically, but we are trying to raise the $3,000 for this particular project. It's the Welcome Center. Welcoming let me tell you why it's important for me to even say this and to be a part of this. Up until June last year, we housed some parole agents in our building. And we worked with the parole agents, the parole officers. We worked with some of the offenders. There were some crossovers and so on. Our main job is to be welcoming, not to remind you of where you came from or where you're going. And we made ourselves very accessible. But the challenge for me on a personal level was that I saw men and women being brought to our office to be released into parole and not having anywhere to go. There's no accommodation. They had the bag with the clothes they had. They were hungry and or thirsty, and they were defeated. Having been homeless myself, I understand what that feels like. And when Dawn started to talk to me about this, I was already way up in there. But when I saw that one particular thing happen, it moved me, it broke me. I cried on the inside. I went into my office and I closed the door and I sat and I was alone with myself for a good 15 minutes, remembering everything. When Dawn and we talked and we came up with the whole concept of second chances, it just rolled right into everything that had been my thinking, that has been my passion. And I would therefore say my purpose. We know that there are many who care about those returning citizens, but we also know that the word shame, the word guilt, and the word value are inextricably linked. Sometimes after individuals have been released from incarceration, even though what's the old Banachek? Well, I don't know, maybe that's a movie long before your guys' time. But if you've done the crime and you've paid your time because you've done the crime, that is not forgotten. And it is almost as if the punishment must continue to keep people reminded of what they did, what they didn't do. Now, I'm not saying that accountability is not needed, absolutely. It's not what we do on the outside that counts, it's what goes on the inside that change. And as we came up with the Welcome Center, it is so simple for me. You're welcoming someone who is expecting the worst to be handed to them because of where they've come from, perhaps the memories, the expectations, the fears. And the Welcome Center is what we're trying to do. The most important thing for me on a Sunday evening was going to the Eat As Much As You Can place in London for £5 when nobody else would give you food. And what I always remember is when someone is kind to me. I'm not asking you for a coat, a shirt, pants. I'm not even asking you for a roof, just a hand of kindness. And there's nothing kinder than to give someone who's hungry an opportunity to eat and to share a meal. As you can see, right now we are fundraising for this. We've had 2 donations totaling up to $460. And Emma, if you could drop the link, they can text to 707070 to donate any amount you want to help us towards that. Now, I want you to know that once you're part of this, you will know everything that goes on with what we do. And as a matter of fact, we will also be sending you a little booklet that highlights everything that has been talked about today. So you have something to show for what you showed up for. And I'm going to hand back over to Don and shut up for a moment because I get really nervous when I have to speak in public.
Thank you, Erwin. We all know you don't get nervous when you speak in public. And what we're going to try and do today, hey, we're just going to take the last couple of minutes of today, and you can do this right now. Text CCJ to 707070 with your donation. We're trying to raise $3,000 for this project, and that's going to buy meals and bus tickets and all the rest of that kind of stuff, and to kind of fix some things up here in the office. So when they walk into this welcome center, it's going to be a really nice place to visit because we want to honor men and women just for being who they are. They're people that we need to care about just because they're people. So that's what your donation is going to go toward. And as Erwin said, we're going to, let you know all the time what's happening with that. But text CCJ to 707070, and we'll make that happen.
Or you can use the link that's there. We have a link that has been put into the chat. And if you need more information, you can shoot us an email at info@centerforcommunityjustice.org. Thank you so much, Don. I'm passing it back to you to wrap up.
Thank you, Andrea. Yes. All right, Andrea, thank you. Hey, everybody has been so incredibly wonderful today, and I want to thank you so much. And as we tail off here, what I really want to do is just encourage you, okay? And I think you got the message today. This isn't about just a second chance. It's about extending as many chances as a person needs. And that whole tattoo removal, it's a process. And for some people, it's an extremely painful process because they don't want to be seen as somebody who's failed. Well, you know what? They're not failures. I fail all the time. And if I, had someone put the designation on me as failure just because I mess up quite often, I'd start to believe that after a while. So be the person who's there when they're ready. Thank you, Corey. I'm writing that down. Be there for that person when they're ready to be there, and when they're ready to make those changes, and be there for them for as long as it takes. So thank you so much for everybody being here today. Thank you so much, Maria. You're incredible. Mail us as many good things that you bake. Mail them to us somehow.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you're gonna do that.
Okay.
Here's what we're gonna do. Okay. Erwin, I did not ask you about this yet. Okay. So for everybody who's still hanging on, I'm gonna do something. Erwin's he's gonna love this, but you know what? We have two ministries represented here today. 2 people, and actually 4 people, are representing 2 ministries that are doing some pretty awesome stuff. So everything that comes in today, whether you do it right now or whatever, every donation that comes in, 10% of that, we're going to split it up. 5% is going to Carabelle's Eats and Treats and the Legacy program, and 5% is going to go to the jail ministry. And Erwin, it's on me. I know, Erwin said, yeah, we'll talk about this later. But yes, I have the ability to do that because I'm still on camera. So whatever you give today, we're gonna share this, because you know what? CCJ can't do it alone. We need everybody doing this together. And there's programs that are doing it, but we need the community to do it. And that's where all of you are going to be able to step up to the plate. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
You.
Have a great day and keep on keeping on. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.